this is the more distressing part. Like one has to wonder what's going on here. This again was the Friends of Ireland luncheon, and we should also say, just since we played that clip of Pelosi refusing, or trying to avoid talking about COVID and COVID funding, the Prime Minister of Ireland couldn't attend because he had COVID. Right? Is that basically?
Yeah, he had COVID. I think didn't he go and then like hurriedly leave when
he found out that, yes, they had tested him. But here she is at the annual Friends of Ireland luncheon, and
she saw that video of Annalyn McCord speaking, writing that poem for Putin and saying, "If I was your mother, the war would be over," or something to that effect. And she thought that was so moving.
This is tough.
I got this message this morning from Bono. Whether we're in Ireland or whatever it is, Bono has been a very Irish part of our lives. And he said this.
Wait.
Bono has been a very Irish part of our lives, as I'm always saying.
Take that fact check.
Like even like what? Can't there be like? Can't we get like Speaker of the House spokesperson? Like, does she really need to be doing these things?
Right. This is. I find this genuinely fascinating because if assuming what she said is true, did Bono text Nancy Pelosi a poem out of the blue for no reason?
He sent it to her. He sent it to her hand delivered on a rainbow from an elf. Yeah, go on.
Joe Biden's Irish. Pelosi's, like me, is an Italian. I don't know why Bono is texting her poems and not Uncle Joe.
Because she has an Irish deficit that is filled by Bono, who has been a very big part of Irishness in her life.
Yes.
I go back.
It's like, I'm sorry, just one more thing. It's like reading a poem from like a black artist and being like, blank has been a very African part of my life or something like that. It's just ridiculous.
Got this message this morning from Bono. Whether we're in Ireland or here, whatever it is, Bono has been a very Irish part of our lives. And he said this. He said, "Oh, St. Patrick, he drove out the snakes with his prayers, but that's not all it takes. For the smoke symbolizes an evil that arises and hides in your heart as it breaks. And the evil risen from friends, from the darkness that lives in some men, but in sorrow and fear, that's when saints can appear to drive out those old snakes once again. And they struggle for us to be free from the psycho in this human family. Ireland's sorrow and pain is now the Ukraine, and St. Patrick's name is now Zelenskyy."
And the response too was also just sort of weird. Like, look at that. He was able to put Zelenskyy into the St. Patrick's poem.
Yeah, like Zelensky's I don't know, it's a pun. I mean, it's literally a limerick. That's the form. Meter's not great, but it's literally a limerick. And Zelenskyy is the punchline. And Russia are the British. If right, like it's literally a written out of Ireland analogy, I think. So I don't know. I just wonder how our allies in London feel about that.
Good point.
Yeah, the way she looked at the end, it was like, when you're in first grade and they do apples and bananas and they get to eeples and baninis. Like, wow, you can do that.
It is like a kid who just told a knock joke and got the punchline right. You see, Saint Zelenskyy.
Boy, it's really. I don't know how to respond to it. I mean, it's such a bizarre time.
Between this and the kente cloth kneeling and the Hamilton cast on January 6th, I know this sounds like a stupid story, but this is everything that's wrong with the Democratic Party. And
no, I mean, right. It seems really and we're just kind of making fun of this, and it's really, really easy to dunk on this as liberal cringe, right? And to just be like, oh, look at all this terrible liberal cringe stuff they do. But they do this in lieu of actually solving problems.
Yeah,
I mean, that's literally
the problem.
They do this in lieu of solving problems.
That's the problem. Were this part of an announcement that I don't know what it was, it would have been like, ugh, but the main point of this is that. But the problem is that they do this, and I think they do it. I don't think it's a coincidence. I do think that there is this sense by the leadership that we can fool people by thinking that we're doing something.
It's condescending.
It's incredibly condescending.
But you know what I think? I think it's also a reflection of a leadership that is in a media bubble as well, too, though, right? Yeah. Because I do actually think that the sort of people who use the word Twitter to mean left-wing critics and say Twitter is not real life spend their lives on Twitter in a bubble of people who praise them for their leadership and how good they are at accomplishing things. I think you can see that dynamic all over the Democratic Party.
And I think too, the what we're seeing in terms of the leadership of the Democratic Party, and I know this is some people are going to play like this is not substantive stuff, but it's about doing the politics. Yeah, I think that not only are they in a bubble, they're in a bubble in terms of understanding how things are communicated in today's society. I really do think this is, it's partly a generational thing. It can be overcome, but it is like, I don't think they understand, I don't think they understand that people experience this stuff in a way that they didn't experience it 25 years ago because of social media. And people are, memes, you cannot control the memes, the idea that that this might have been reported in the New York Times, had she done this 30 years ago, it would have reached the narrow subset of people where there may have had some value. But the problem is this goes out and becomes fodder for narratives about the Democratic Party. And people are aware of what's not being done. I think there's tin ear is too narrow, too small of a term here, because it's not just a tin ear. It's almost as if they don't have ears, and that they're not aware of
Well, right, and I mean I think it does actually. Again, we're talking about a really, really insignificant thing in the broader scheme, but if you don't understand why so many people would find it inherently ridiculous to say, I received a poem from Bono this morning. That there's a tiny, tiny, tiny subset of people who are going to hear that and be impressed or interested, right? And then want to hear the poem. I do think it's again, it's too easy to mock this sort of Hamilton worship stuff. But it is this sort of liberal bubble that they live in, that they frequently accuse everyone else of being in.
Yes, and I'm not sure it doesn't also have to do with just how wealthy she is, frankly.
Yeah, no, I mean the wealth is a huge part of it. It's a very elite
huge part of it. I mean, the idea of
With that said, though, Sam, thank you so much for being a very Jewish part of our lives.
You're welcome.
Sam has always traditionally, in the Lower East Side or anywhere else, Sam has always been a traditionally Jewish part of our lives.
Can you imagine? I'm Irish. I live in Ireland. And Bono has always been a very big Irish part of my life. Like, what? Just insane jibber jabber. It's just like, no.